This is the best photo of Saturn I have ever taken in my life. That photo right there. Hey everybody, it's Nick from the Orbital Alliance. Tonight I'm out getting ready to image the planet Saturn. And if you can't tell, I'm trying to be as quiet as I can with respect to my neighbors as they all sleep, because it is currently 1 a.m. on a Sunday night. I'm going to show you guys my setup, and then I'm going to show you the process that I do for processing this image data that I capture out here in the field. And at the end of the video, you'll see the final result. So buckle up, we're gonna explore the night sky together, and it's gonna be super fun. So if you want to do planetary imaging, what you're going to need is a setup similar to this. There's a million different variations, all different types of equipment that you can be using, but I'm going to share with you what I'm using while I'm out here trying to capture images of Saturn. This strategy and method can be used for all of the planets, but what you need, of course, is a telescope, and this is an 8-inch Newtonian reflector telescope, and you need an astro imaging camera like I have mounted here to my focuser, and then you need a dedicated laptop that you can bring into the field with recording software, and this recording software is typically free. I use Fire Capture, and what you do is you record video of the subject. So you're not taking snapshots like you would with a phone. You're not going up there and just snapping an image. You're actually taking tons of frames, still frames, within a video, and then you're going to take it into post-production later, and you're going to flatten all those frames together and take the best frames. You're going to eliminate the ones that have wonky pixels and weird aberrations, and you're going to take the best quality ones and you're going to combine them into one image and make the best quality image that you possibly can. So let's get Saturn into the frame. I'll show you guys what it looks like in Fire Capture, and then I'm going to hit record and capture some sessions. So it's going to be great to see the ringed planet right in our field of view here. So let me get the camera set up for you guys, and I'll show you what it looks like on my laptop. I'm willing to bet that one of the most asked questions on this video that you guys are going to put in the comments is, of course, what are your settings? What settings did you use to capture Saturn? And as with any sort of photograph, you can have an idea of what those settings are, and I'm going to flash them here on the screen for you. I'm going to show you what I used tonight, but of course, my night sky conditions are going to be different than yours, and my equipment is going to be different than yours. So hopefully my settings are a great starting point for you, but they will not solve every single problem that you have along the way. All right, so let's do a 30-second session here. So I've just hit record. We're gonna watch Saturn just kind of drift in here, and it looks like I've got a decent exposure going, just enough detail coming through without too much overexposure. And we can also fix some of that in post, but we're gonna try to get some of the Cassini division and some of the cloud bands here in the image. And there it goes out of frame. That should be about 30 seconds. There we go, perfect. Now, one of the things that you need to think about when you're out here imaging with a computer and a telescope and all the fancy equipment is that you are out here to enjoy the night sky. That's really the purpose, is to enjoy thinking about what makes space so cool that you want to come out here in the middle of the night to take pictures of it. And as I think about this, I always try to make sure that I take a couple of seconds to just look up and enjoy the pitch black and to be kind of present with this side of nature. It's easy to do it during the day when it's sunny and beautiful, but to be out here at night and to actually see the stars, to be one with the night sky for just a little bit, to be okay with a little bit of quiet, it's pretty important. And I think that makes the art of astrophotography that much more special. So if you're out there imaging, make sure you take a moment to just look up and enjoy the night sky while you're out here. Okay, I feel like I've gotten plenty of image data. I've gotten several video files captured of the planet Saturn, and I feel really good about what we've captured tonight. It is, of course, 1:44 in the morning, and I'm tired, and I would like to go to sleep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop imaging now, and I'm going to go to sleep, and tomorrow I'm going to do all of the post-processing, and I'll show you guys every step of the way. So again, stick around to the absolute end so you don't miss the final result. It's going to be really exciting. So thanks for staying up super late with me. I'll see you guys in the morning. Time jump. Okay, it's been a couple of days actually since I recorded my data of the planet Saturn, and here I am in my studio. I'm going to be post-processing that image data to create a final image to share with the world. Now, if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to tell you all the steps and all the programs that you're going to need to do the same thing. So what you're going to need right now is you're going to need to get your own planetary imaging data. So you can do this with any planet that you want. So let's just say you have imagery of Saturn as well. So we're going to kind of just follow along with that. You're also going to need 3 free programs or applications that you can download from the internet. And here's what you'll need. I'll put them right up here on the screen. You're going to need PIPP, that's PIPP, Planetary Image Preprocessor. You're going to need AutoStakkert, and you're going to need Registax. So you're probably wondering, why do you need 3 programs? Well, here's why. I like to think about creating astro images as sort of like cooking. You don't just like acquire food and eat it. Like, you can, but the best meals are the ones that you shop for all the ingredients, and you clean the food and you chop it up nicely or prepare it, then you mix it together with seasonings and spices, and then you cook it the right way, and then you prepare the final plate. Like, you drizzle the sauce on the right way, you lay out the vegetables next to the starches and the meats, and you lay it all in the right way. That makes an appetizing meal. That's why people pay hundreds of dollars for a good meal, because you go through all the steps necessary. This is kind of the same thing. You use these 3 apps to prepare your image data to be processed. Then you kind of mix it in with all the goods and to fine tune it, and then you put it in sort of a presentation software, which is where you're going to want to try to make it look pretty and dial all those settings in so you get your final image that makes the most of the data that you captured. So hopefully that paints the picture for you a little bit, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I think it's important to kind of have some context around what we're doing here, because this can get very technical, and I'm going to try to do the least amount of that as possible. So let's keep it user-friendly here. And the very first step we're going to do is we're going to review our raw footage from the other night of Saturn. So let's take a look at that real quick. Okay, so I've got all my Saturn data here in my Explorer window. I recorded a bunch of videos. You obviously don't need all of these. I just happen to do a bunch just for safety and to have options. But let's take a look at the last one and open it up in VLC. And here's our raw image data of Saturn. It is a video file. It's an AVI file. And there's Saturn, the planet. It's cruising across my screen, you can tell. And the reason for that is I do not have a tracking mount on my telescope, so I was manually letting it just sit where Saturn was, and this is the rotation of the Earth moving Saturn out of my frame. And here you'll see that I am adjusting it manually on my mount. It gets really shaky, which is not optimal. That's why you want a tracking mount, to keep it in the center of your frame. But this was a 30-second capture, and you can still make it a phenomenal image with manually tracked mounts. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close this, and we're going to open up PIPP first. This is gonna be the first in line, so make sure you get all those programs before we start. Go online. Again, they're free, so you don't have to like waste a bunch of money. What we're gonna do is, here's PIPP. It's a very simple, non-frilly looking application, and we're gonna drop our video image data right into PIPP, right in the middle here. So drag and drop it, and it's gonna prompt you, do you want to enable debayering and all that? The correct answer is yes, we do want to. And then it's going to open up a frame for you here, and it's going to give you sort of a preview of this footage and what it kind of looks like. And there you can start to see the color of Saturn kind of poke out there. So we're going to close that. And one thing we're going to do on this first page is we're going to select planetary in the bottom right under optimize options. We do want to select planetary because it's a planet. And then up top, it's sort of a workflow. You work from left to right. It starts with source files and ends on the right with do processing. So we're going to go step by step through each one. The second layer of tabs you don't need to worry about unless you're getting like really nitty gritty. So let's go into input options, and for the most part, all of this in these tabs are going to stay the same. There might be 1 or 2 things we adjust, but I am going to show you all of these so that you can see and compare my settings to yours, and you can see whether or not you need to keep your settings a certain way or what have you. Sometimes it's like, well, this changed and the defaults were this, you know. So take a look at this, and I'll let you know if we need to change something. I think everything looks good here. We're going to go to processing options. Make sure you have object and planetary
selected up here in frame stabilization mode, that panel there. And one thing just to note, you don't need to change anything, but this input gain and gamma correction, you can make these adjustments if your exposure was underexposed or you want to like brighten it up or darken it. Just to adjust these values by 0.1 values. It usually does a pretty good job. I've used it for space station imagery where I've underexposed the space station, and I've bumped it up a couple notches, and it helps bring up some of those details that I missed in the initial exposure. Again, with gain, you also do gain grain. It adds grain. So with gain, you get grain. It's kind of a memorable phrase to think about. So for now, I did properly expose Saturn, so I'm going to leave it at 1.0 and 1.0. Let's go to quality options. Don't need to change anything here. We're not making an animation in this case. We can, but in this case we're not. We're just trying to create a still image of Saturn, so we can ignore this. Output options, we do need to double check a couple of things here, but for the most part, we should be okay. Output format, we do want AVI. And then AVI file options, you want DIB raw uncompressed. That's a good thing to know that you have. And then output subdirectory and output directory are something we're going to check. This is where you tell the program where you want the file to be saved to. So go ahead and click select directory and choose the folder that you want to save your image data to. I have one here and we're good to go. You can change the name and the subdirectory file if you want. I just leave it the default. All right. Now what we're going to do next is go to do processing, and this is where the magic happens. It's going to sort of give you these progress meters, and you can hit start processing. And this is where it's preparing all of your frames into one new video file. I have 816 frames from a 30-second exposure. I think I was running it around 27 frames per second. And this is going to vary for you. I don't know how long you ran your exposure for, so don't think you're right or wrong if your number is different than mine here. It pops open a folder for you now, which has our new video file, this PIPP video file. And there's our preview. Look at that. It got Saturn, it's got the colors, but take a look at it. It looks pretty grainy, right? But here, let's take a look at what PIPP does for us. So it's rolling the video. What do you notice? What's the difference here? What did PIPP do for us in this situation? Obviously, it's centered. That's an amazing thing. You saw it moving across the screen before, and that was a problem, but PIPP did some really heavy lifting for us here. It's now centered every frame that we possibly had. It's also brought out the colors. But something you do notice is that fluttering. Every now and then there's like a wobble, and that's where I was manually tracking it. It did align and bring all those frames where it was shooting all across for me and put them in the middle and tried to balance, the orientation the best that it could. So it took some really unusable frames and made them semi-usable, which again, heavy lifting on PIPP's part. So that's a really, really good thing to have. So let's move this out of the way here, and I'm going to close PIPP because we're done with it for now. Next, you're going to want to open up AutoStakkert. So let's click that open, and you should have two frames that look kind of like this. It should be something similar. This one on the right here is your preview frame, and where you're going to select your points, your tracking points. And then on the left is, again, kind of like the control window. So let's do the same thing with our imagery. We're going to drag our data that we captured from PIPP, not your original file, but your PIPP export. So it should say _PIPP. You're going to take this and then drag it into the preview frame. And then you can again move your Explorer out of the way. Now, again, we have our data that we can see, which is amazing. And then we now can start taking some steps. So you see step 1 is open, step 2 is analyze, and step 3 is stack. Now, what AutoStakkert, it's kind of in the name, and I believe it's a foreign program, so I'm not really sure exactly what Stakkert means exactly, but basically the whole point here is to analyze the video file that we have, and it's going to say, here are the good frames, here are the bad frames, how many of those do you want to take? And now we're going to squish them all together for you, the best of the best of the best. So let's do that. So we have our file uploaded, and we already hit open, so you don't really need to do that. Next, we're going to hit analyze, and you'll see it do some work here. And now we have a green check mark under buffering and analysis. It'll tell you how long that part took. But in order to complete the rest of the checklist, we got to do some work here first. So let's take a look at the quality graph. This is going to give you a line here on the graph that shows you which these here on the left are the best frames, these here on the right are the worst frames, and how many that you had. So we kind of have an even split. And then you get to go up here, we're under frame percentage to stack, and you can adjust this number. So it's saying, I want to take the top 50% of these frames and use those only. So we're basically going to scrap the other 50%, which is fair because this is a pretty even graph. It's sort of up to you, but depending on how well you captured the object, I think we did a pretty good job. So things look pretty even. So I'm going to stay with 50. And then we're going to go over to this frame here and start drawing on these alignment points. And this is going to, again, help sort of like bring everything together. If there were differing frames where one was like slightly off, or, you know, things look a little wobbly or distorted, it's going to take those frames, line them up, and make sure that they look really sharp. So what we do need to do is tell the program what parts of the image to consider during this process. So you can go down here to place AP grid, alignment point grid, and it drops all these dots and boxes on your image. That's a good thing. And you can adjust the number here. I think generally you're gonna want enough points. You don't want like 3 or 4 points. You're gonna want it to have maybe, I don't know, 20, 50 points somewhere in there. Again, this is gonna be a little bit of trial and error. 34, let's stick around there. That looks pretty good. It's kind of covering the rings, the planet. It's picking points that look distinguishable. So that looks good. Now we're gonna do the final step here in AutoStakkert, and that is we're gonna hit step 3 and hit stack. So let's do that. So it's gonna go to work. Your computer might be slower or faster than mine. And when it checks all the boxes, it's done. And basically you go to your same folder where you hit export and where you ingested from your PIPP file. And it's gonna drop a new folder, AS for AutoStakkert, and we've got all this new data. And this is where it starts to get exciting because you can preview this image and you can see the best data pulled out of that PIPP video file, and it's starting to go somewhere. Things are looking good. So let's do that. Let's take a look here. Look at that image of Saturn. Oh my gosh, like, look at your work. Are you starting to see the results? Look at what you did. Just from this alone, this isn't even done. Just from this alone, this is the best photo of Saturn I have ever taken in my life. That photo right there. I'm so excited, I can't really believe it right now. Enjoy the process. Doing this work now, it's how you get the payoff later. So we do have one more step though, and the final step is kind of like, how are we gonna cook the food and put it on the plate to serve to our guests? We're gonna bring it back the food analogy. So let's go ahead and close AutoStakkert, and we're gonna open up Registax. And this program is basically going to take your image data that you spat out of AutoStakkert. Everything's now aligned and focused in for you. We're now going to basically take it into Photoshop. It's kind of what you're gonna do. You can adjust the color, the orientation and the angles and the contrast and the sharpening. You really get to dial in the data that you've captured. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up Registax and drag our file straight in, just like we've done the last 3 times. It's then going to prompt you with, do you want to stretch intensity levels? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit yes. And things already look really great straight out of AutoStakkert. But the first thing I'm noticing, of course, is that Saturn's at a ridiculous angle. I would like to rotate it per my preference. So I'm gonna hit flip and rotate. You have these functions up here in the upper right, and then this window pops up for you, and you can drag the triangle until it's at an orientation that you like. I like to have it at a little bit of an angle. It kind of makes Saturn look cool. So I'm gonna leave it right there. Next, I'm gonna go over to RGB align. We're gonna draw a little box around Saturn and make sure that the red, green, and blue channels are really dialed in. If they are not, you can have this program do it automatically, or you can adjust it manually here. So hit estimate. It takes a second to cook. You might not notice any changes, and if so, that's a good thing. If it goes crazy and you start seeing green, red, and blue Saturns all over the place, like something went wrong. Go ahead and close that window. I'm going to go into the gamma. This looks great, but I think it looks just a little bit dark. So I'm going to take this graph and boost up the middle just a little bit until I find the right exposure. I think that looks pretty good. Looks good to me. If you do want to adjust the brightness and contrast, you can do that on the right side, but it does adjust the whole image, so it's something to consider. Now this is where things get dicey. On the left side here is where you're going to do a lot of work to pull out detail in the planet. So the wavelets panel here is where you do that. And each of these, there's 6 different layers. So you're gonna want all of them checked, and you can kind of match these settings on your end. But the rest of this is up to you. I'm gonna dive in here and make a bunch of adjustments. I'm probably gonna speed up this section so I don't bore you. But each of these will change the image. So you wanna find the details that you think are interesting about your planet. In this case, the clouds on Saturn, the rings, the Cassini division in the rings, things like that. I do want to kind of accentuate those, pull them out without making it look too overdone. This is a place where you can overdo it very easily. So stick to the mantra of less is more when you are adjusting your wavelets. So again, I'm probably going to speed this part up, and then you'll see the final work done in just a second. Okay, so we've done a lot of work here, and it is really tough to dial in some of these settings because it does come out so well out of AutoStakkert, but I do feel a lot better about this particular image versus the raw image, and we're gonna now export it out of Registax here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up here and click Save Image, and this is where you're gonna choose the folder. It should just be the same. This is gonna be, you can choose your file type. In this case, I'm just gonna do JPEG, click Save. And now we can go to our folder that we have all of our data in, and here is the final image. So let's open it up and take a look. So it is going to be pixelated because it is a small image, but there you have it. There is the planet Saturn. We do see features like the Cassini division in the rings, multiple cloud bands here, as well as, you get some bluish hue out of the icy rings around the planet. So I am super happy with this image. I can't believe what we were able to get with such a simple telescope and camera setup. It's really nothing fancy that I have, but you can of course improve your imagery by continuing to work within Registax and shifting all those wavelets around and finding the right look for you. I could do that all day if I wanted to, and I probably would never be totally done, but I am going to call it right here. I am satisfied with this image. But over time, you can upgrade your equipment, get a better Barlow lens, get a better telescope, get a better astro camera. All those things will help. But even if you have simple things, you can get images just like this. I hope you are as satisfied as I am. And if you learned something from this process, let me know what that was down in the comments. And if you found this video helpful at all, please consider liking and subscribing to the Orbital Alliance. It would help out the channel immensely. So thank you for spending your time with me here. Be sure to check out the other fun astrophotography and space news videos I have here on the channel. And with that, I will see you all on the other side.